I first asked Smitha if she wanted us sitting on a park bench somewhere reminiscing about the good old days of restauranting and, as we get ready for
That
the
would be
pasture
lovely.
and,
The only thing that Riyaaz and I would like to take up with you before we start anything is this is like your 100th show or something. Now you've thought about us, huh?
I was saving the good stuff for a little later.
Japanese ho ya badtameez, aaj maza, kal saza.
You know those names you've grown up hearing? The ones quietly shaping your memories, your go-to hangouts, and your first dates? For me, that's Singh and Riyaaz Amlani. As a journalist who's covered the food beat for over a decade, I've had a front row seat to how these two have transformed India's restaurant landscape. But I've also lived it. I've split a chocolate avalanche at Mocha with my then boyfriend and now husband. And on the day of our court wedding, we walked into Monkey Bar and they surprised us with free champagne. These places have served as backdrops to some of my life's most important moments. And I know I'm not alone in thinking that, because they aren't just restaurants. They've become part of the cultural fabric of our cities. In this episode, I'm chatting with Riyaaz and Adi about building brands with soul, designing for the future, and what it means to nurture the next wave of culinary culture. This episode is nostalgic, punchy, and just the right amount of unfiltered. So, of course, I'm pairing it with the coffee and dark chocolate indie Katli bars by Bombay Sweet Shop. Hi, Adi and Riyaaz. Welcome to Big Food Energy. I'm very, very excited to have the two of you on my podcast. So, thank you so much for being here.
Our pleasure, Smitha. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see Riyaaz, who I haven't met for a while.
It's been a while, Eddie, and thank you, Smitha, for having me on your fantastic show. And especially to be in the same podcast as my hero, Eddie, is just amazing.
It's a real treat to have the two of you, in conversation with me. I want to start by asking the two of you, what are you trying to do when you're putting a restaurant concept together? Is there a feeling that you're trying to sort of recreate when you're building a new restaurant?
I was lucky that when I started, we didn't have very much. And there were lots of people like me who really wanted more than we had. So I, for a long time, was actually creating things that I was missing and I wished was around me. And they worked because there was really nothing like that for a long time. I've never really relied on market research. It's really a lot of gut because of the history of how it all started. Olive, for example, I was sitting on a beach in Phuket on a family holiday, and I found myself at the same restaurant 3-4 days in a row. I loved all the bits about it. They had, I think, French jazz, nice coffee, decent food, lovely. It was just off the beach. But I think what I liked the most about it was this lazy vibe that it had, which, I really could sink into. And I thought to myself, that's something that we'd all love to have in Bombay, which is so fast-paced and a bit of a jungle. And that really was the core of how Olive was born.
Lovely. And what about you, Riyaaz? Do concepts also come in this very lovely enlightened way, like for AD, or are they more sort of on a document that you're sort of trying to recreate?
So I think one of the reasons why we take on the sea of troubles of running restaurants because we enjoy those few fleeting moments of creating something special. It's been a kind of a little arc when it comes to what inspires. First, I think it was some level of civic pride. When you go on vacations or you go on holidays, you feel a tinge of the poverty of what you have back home, and you wish that you had these great spaces where you could commune with your city. So I think Mocha was all about, for me, was having a place where I would like to hang out. It was a third space, and we didn't want to do a Starbucks ripoff. We wanted to kind of we created a Moroccan or a North African coffee house, and then of course AD set this. He created this word called resto bar, which I attribute fully to him. And before that, there was no resto bar, and I think. yeah, these two guys being my heroes, of course, Saltwater Grill and Smokehouse Grill and Stonewater Grill came about from, the kind of things that AD and Rahul had created, especially AD with, had created this lifestyle space, which was all about energy. It was all about, he brought in fashion and he brought in art and he brought in design and made restaurants so much bigger than just food and drink. Then it became about my ego for a while. It was about look what I can make.
Very
And
brave of you to say that.
after creating restaurants as cathedrals to my own ego, I quickly realized that I was no longer thinking about the customer. Right? And I think that we had this restaurant called Smokehouse Room or Shroom in Delhi, which was, in my opinion, my
Incredible.
finest work at that point of time. But it was a complete disaster. And in that sense, then I started figuring out, okay, you know what does the guest really want, right? Like AD's created, the whole gamut. I mean, it's from just desserts to the Ripon night, jazz things in Alibag. So, I think that the idea of design really is to find a mood and then build, around it in such a way that the food, the decor, the music, just all complements to the mood. So sometimes you want to be in a place which you feel very elegant and you have olive for that. And sometimes you want to be in your flip-flops and have a really soulful experience. And, AD built Soul Fry and Soul Curry around that. And I would think that designing a restaurant is like playing a chord. You need all of them. All the strings to sound coherent and resonant. And that's the long answer to a very small question. Sorry.
So I want to throw a question. And my question for you is, how long did you work on it? Because that's a product I think you worked very hard on so many aspects. And being a restaurateur myself, I can appreciate all the pieces that you put together before you ever open. And it was such a brilliantly, conceived and developed and evolved product. The name Social, which, remember in school, the school socials we used to have.
Yeah.
Then, of course, from there to there, it was just brilliant. How long did you take to put that together?
Well, I think it was about a year, and Social was kind of a rebrand which we did for Mocha in many ways. And when we had created Mocha, it was in 2001. And I guess the audience that we were going after were Gen Xers. To Social around 2014, it was all about the millennials, right? And there was a little bit of a paradigm shift. And AD, you and me have always had these kind of synchronicities, because I find, SodabottleOpenerWala came about at the same time, which had, quite a few overlaps. And you also had Ek Bar, which again was celebrating this kind of, bilingual or dual lingual approach to restaurants. Also celebrating, for the first time, this nouveau Indianness that we had, and this because before that, all restaurants completely ignored the fact that we were Indians, or pretended. It was this major kind of, Occidental overhang that we had. I think it was about this time where Indians had been exposed to international offerings. They had a chance to, use them, own them, and then discard them and come back to finding what their real, how culturally rooted yet Western-facing or forward-facing we were. Yeah, so Mocha, because it had become so closely associated with Shisha at that point of time, and we wanted to move away from the Shisha. With Social gave us a little bit more freedom to become whatever we wanted, and it allowed us to be in this continual stage of evolution. It was then, and now the third spaces of tomorrow are already, there are already so many new challengers now ready for the Gen Zs. And
Yeah. I love what you said about, sort of creating spaces that are rooted in culture, because that's something that I've always admired about the both of you, that you've always had your finger on the pulse. You haven't sort of just brought down a concept that's been popular abroad and just replicated it here in India, but it's really been rooted in who we are, what we want to eat. And I think that is really what people respond to when they're coming to your spaces. So, Riyaaz, you were talking about how, of course, there are so many challengers, and you talked about this little bit of an evolution from Western-only concepts to this sort of hybrid identity of a restaurant. What would you say we are moving towards now? I mean, for the two of you, if there was a direction that you could sort of predict.
Good grief. Eddie, you go first. Beauty before age. Well, it's going in so many directions, right? People are wanting more of more. I think every culture has its own third space, right? In India, more so. Like in Punjab, we have dhabas, and in Kerala, we have toddy shops, and I think people want to explore a little bit of everything. So regional third spaces are being explored now. There's celebration of different cultural spaces, which tend to be vernacular as well as international. So now people are even wanting to explore how does a Malaysian drink their coffee, or the chai ki tapri, or there's so many different explorations that are happening now. And now this fourth wave of coffee which has come up. There's almost like this Cambrian explosion, right, where life is blowing up into very different life forms now, right? From just being a single cellular organism, we're now becoming this very diverse, life form, which is just creeping up all around. And it's a very interesting time to be alive. It's also a very stressful time to be alive. I think that park bench doesn't sound so bad.
I'm also joining you on that park bench. But what would you say, Adi? Where would you say things are going? Of course, Riyaaz was talking about the regionality of things and how people are sort of, taking inspiration from our own regional spaces. Would you agree with that, or would you say that there's something else that people want or are looking out for?
It's lovely to see the evolution of the customer in the market. Our customers are wanting more and more. I mean, in my time when we grew up, we had Conti, Chinese, Indian, very broad categories. Yeah. The time has come for very focused, segmented, strongly conceptualized spaces, maybe small. I've never been to Japan myself, but from what I hear, they're tiny spaces just doing one thing. Let's say, for example, crab sashimi. That's it, as focused as that. The Indian market's heading towards that. You've seen in Bangalore, that noodle house, small place.
Naru. Yeah.
Naru. Wine in Progression, little place just on wine. A pizza and wine place also in Bangalore, just down the street from these. Mm-hmm. So that's lovely that the market is not only ready for that, but wants that, which gives a lot of opportunity for people like Riyaaz and myself. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Riyaaz comes up with and the market comes up with in the years ahead.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. You've both sort of built these multiple brands under your umbrella, from Smokehouse Deli to Bandra Born now, BANG, Prithvi, Sling, Fatty Bar, Monkey Bar, Grammar Room, like so many different diverse concepts that have all spoken to diners in different ways. And what I like really is that each of them feels special in their own unique way. If you go to, no two socials are the same, no two fatty bows are the same. What is your approach to sort of knowing if a brand is ready to scale versus whether it should just remain as a standalone restaurant? Do you have like a way to define that, or is that just something that you figure out as you're building the restaurant?
For me, my learning has been over these years that the more focus one has is on a single brand, you're able to create more value for your company, for future investors that way. I know Riyaaz, I'm not even sure I must have been, I don't know, 60 socials, 70 socials?
57.
57.
Wow.
So there's a company I think are very focused, but they're doing so many lovely, like I love Bandraborn, I love Singh and Bardo. I know with my own learning, with my investors, it's kind of been 80. Don't try and grow into too many different brands. Let's focus on Olive, which is our mother brand. Extend it out in different brand extensions, but try and make your future and your growth more focused on that. The love, the excitement, the thinking, the creation. I've sort of reversed direction from a few years back. I think Riyaaz also probably has the same slight dilemma, creating beautiful things or making many more socials, and we both try and balance that the best that we can.
How do you feel about that, Riyaaz?
Conflicted. Well, in India, we have a particular challenge. We have 60 or 70 locations where people make money. And after that, it's all the boonies, except for QSRs. Right? If you were looking at full service restaurants, which is where AD and me, I think our DNA and our, we are much
Our
more.
strengths.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Our strength is we are not a logistical business. And if I just look at the growth of our company, we started off in 2001. I mean, you can provide soul or you can provide, that magic fairy dust to a couple of brands, right? And then you start having to wear too many hats. Then that magic dust, that the brand custodianship or the brand stewardship starts getting loosened. I think we've all gone through these journeys, Adi. You and I at least have seen this, probably you've seen 4 very distinct cycles of the restaurant industry. Our business, unfortunately, is anti-loyalty in a way. And if you went to a restaurant today, and even if it gave us best-in-class service and best-in-class value, chances of us going back to that same restaurant that very month is very, very low. People go out in clusters. So, for example, Smitha, I'm sure you have 14 restaurants which you love going to. I'm sure you have your favorites, but I'm sure you divide your time equally between those 14, and you also keep a few of your occasions to check out the new restaurants to kind of make up your mind. Right? Then I don't know any other business where there's so much competition. I mean, if you want to buy a watch, maybe there are 10 or 15 Swiss watch companies that you can think about. If you want to take a flight, you think about 6 or 7 companies. Apple or Android, that's the choice. But when it comes to restaurants, oh my God, there's so many choices. I feel that the India story answer has to be a very unique story. It has to be a product which is tailored for India. So even for social, right, after hitting 57 stores, we are trying to figure out, okay, where else can we go after this, right? How many more stores can we open up? And yes, I think we can get to about 150 stores. But then, what then? I actually feel that having a bouquet of brands where you are able to, max out the top 40, top 50 locations, and I'd rather have more restaurants in the top locations than have 150 restaurants in 150 different locations. So, I mean, I think my hypothesis is changing a little bit, Eddie. I feel that while we have a lot of width, the depth is missing in this country, and we are still going through an evolution. So, I would put my eggs in different baskets, not just put them all in one. And not all brands need to go to 100 stores. I think some brands should just be 4 stores. And we have to keep one eye on the store profitability and one eye on the entire corporate costs, which tend to balloon up. The wider you go, the greater ballooning of the corporate costs. So you got to... I think these are things that, AD and me both spend a lot of our nights thinking about instead.
What I love seeing, which I think is something that restaurateurs who are listening to this or watching, Riyaaz always seems to have great fun with whatever he's doing with his brands, Enjoy what you do, for God's sake. We got one life, and you should have a good time. I think he's a great example of that. And I think you can also produce your best work that way,
Yeah.
Because then it's flowing from you. You're giving it your best, your passion. And that's, I think, also about... So I knew Riyaaz before he became a restaurateur. We'd met, I guess, around sort of you had one time we're in leisure as well, right? But
Bowling company.
Bowling company days.
Yeah, you were in their your family entertainment center space. I was supplying bumping cars and video game, arcade games and stuff like that. So our paths crossed at bowling company.
Bowling, which is God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember my first business class experience, you took me to a flight in Bangalore, tried to get me to open up a Mocha in Bangalore.
Really?
Oh, wow. So I totally get what you say about having a good time and being able to have a good time. I guess that's why we're all in this creative business, right? To also have fun at the end of the day. But that also leads me to my next question about investors. Edie, you've
just kidding. Yeah.
Edie, you've spoken about in the past a major regret of yours is that Sachin Tendulkar approached you for a restaurant partnership years ago, but your investors at the time didn't believe that a cricketer would be a good partner for a restaurant. And fast forward to today, we see investors still shaping the sort of trajectory of a restaurant. How do you both navigate the pressures of investors while also ensuring that you're still having fun, you're still sort of making sure that your vision and your instincts are not being compromised for what you want to do?
Apart from one bad experience with one particular gentleman, I'd say largely been quite fortunate with the people who've backed us, supported us now for 17 years. I think I've also learned a lot from them in terms of governance, compliance, business. As I said, I wasn't born a business fan. I didn't really have a good business sense in that way. And by and large, they're very supportive. They share their inputs and then back me to take things forward as I see best.
And what about you, Riyaaz?
So you will have a different set of investors would have very different objectives, right? If there's a whole slew of restaurant investors who are not private equity. They want a trophy asset. They're happy to partner up with a celebrity restaurateur or a marquee restaurateur, and then have a calling card and entertain their friends and family, and that's pretty cool too. But if you get private equity, then of course their long-term objectives are it's not a trophy asset for them. The growth of the business and growth of value is everything. And obviously, I think, working with private equity does give you a lot of discipline. It gives you a lot of fiscal discipline. It allows you to make decisions, which, of course, like, AD and I tend to think from a gut. But we also have to keep one eye on the Excel sheet and one eye on our gut and figure out somewhere, the truth is somewhere in the middle, because Excel sheets can only tell you, current behavior or, things that it cannot predict what's going to happen in the future. And also one thing to remember is that private equity is very, very clear. They're going to be a part of your journey for a slice of time. And then they will pass the baton on to another set of investors. So you continuously need to have growth. So I think as a managing director or a CEO of a company, you have to be focused on giving your investors return, but you also have to be focused on creating long-term value. And how do you create a business that's going to outlast you?
So I do want to add about this story with Sachin. It's true, I'm sports mad. I've been all my life. Many of my closest friends are those who I share different sports we play. And Sachin was and is one of my big idols in that sense. And he had a lovely visionary manager, Mark Manuel, I think his name was. He had reached out to me to open a sports bar with Sachin. Unfortunately, he had to go soon because a huge crowd gathered. And so he had to leave before it became out of control. But I loved the idea. And my investors at that time, not that they thought that cricketers wouldn't add value, but just we were a company, we were slow, we had meetings after meetings. And by then the opportunity went away. And he opened 3 flights up a while later with Sanjay Narang. And for me also, it's a regret because I'd have loved to have got to know him better and worked together.
Yeah. Okay, so Riyaaz, you were talking about creating a legacy and creating this sort of lasting impact. And, through social, through, through the different initiatives that both of you have done, Edie and Riyaaz, you have been able to create spaces that, are more than just serving food, but they're actually contributing to a cultural landscape. How do you sort of intentionally design spaces that kind of foster that impact? And Edie, I know you also think of impact and giving back slightly differently. So if you could talk to me about that as well.
Go ahead, Riyaaz. Why don't you start by?
With your permission, sir. I think you have to kind of have first principles on what your philosophy of your brand really is, and you need to be able to very coherently put that down as your brand guidelines and your brand objectives. So social was very clear for us. Was always inspired by the social spaces of India, like I was alluding to earlier. Social spaces in India take up very interesting forms. For example, the local train that leaves Churchgate station at 7 p.m. also becomes a social space, right? A lot of people gather around. You've got the same people taking the same train and they start playing cards. And then you have, in the women's compartment, there are all these women who are helping each other chop up vegetables while they are on their way home. And libraries, parks, post offices, chai ki taparis, all these kind of have doubled up as social spaces in India. So it's a very strong vernacular bent. So we do find that we work a lot with nostalgia, which things which are kind of very hyper local references. So your bus stop numbers, the train numbers that you take, which is the train that you take, which is your nearest train station. So the lots of what are the points of interest in your community, in your hood. So we try and examine, what is the cuisine of Khar, or what is the cuisine of Thane, or what is the design aesthetic of these places. And it kind of creates this kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I understand your daily life, and and you get these kind of jokes that you only get if you're part of the hood, right? Or you grew up there. So I think that kind of connection has really worked for social.
And as well as that anti-social, what you've done with just being able to open it up to different kinds of subcultures of the city, whether it's music or other kinds of subcultures as well, and bringing people from those communities, to this physical space that embodies that.
Anti-social is kind of our slight alter ego, where social is about celebrating the community and bringing the community together. Anti-social is about bringing communities together and making them shut up and listen to the music. And that's why it's called anti-social, because then the focus is, it's designed in such a way it's just a stage, there's speakers, there's no furniture. You're just there for the music. And it lets us really indulge on both sides of the spectrum, which is fun.
No, that's great. And that's, I guess, what creates lasting impact. Edie, if you can talk a little bit about how you create spaces that create this sort of legacy, and also how you're looking at creating an impact that goes beyond just the restaurant.
So, it's interesting because when Riyaaz used the word legacy, I guess as one gets older, bit by bit, those are things you think about, Yeah, both of us have given a lot of people a lot of joy over the years, some of their happiest memories. For me, I think legacy-wise, while on that subject, that over the years, the chance I've had to make a difference to even our team's lives, people we've worked with, interacted with, we've always tried to be as fair as possible, maybe more than fair, to give back as much as possible. And in fact, I'd like to take that moment to your listeners to say that, in the end, we are Indians. We live in a country with so much poverty. And I think as a part of the leaders of the F&B industry, There's so much we can do to give back. The Olive Group, for example, some years ago, started an NGO called Kitchens Against Hunger. And we charge people 10 rupees on every bill at many of the restaurants. And then we match it with 10 rupees from our side. Nobody's ever complained. We've had many people quite liking that thought. And surprisingly, these 20 bucks on a bill really adds up to a lot. And we donate the money to NGOs I vet myself, which they feed hungry children. Because really, kids going without food is something I think that's heartbreaking for all of us. And so for me, I think Riyaaz, for 25, 26, love to work with you in the restaurant community to see how we can together try and give back more, especially to feeding kids. But I think there's so much need in India, it could be used for almost anything. And I'd urge the listeners of your podcast also to see what more they can do and do it, you know.
Yeah. You've been doing restaurants against hunger now for over 15, 16 years. I remember that, maybe longer. And fully applaud you for that, Eddie. You were doing this long before, I think. I think Eddie brought up a very interesting point about the role of restaurants in making cities more livable and more lovable and more visitable. In a sense that restaurants provide you these safe places where you can commune with those cities and really experience those cities almost as an insider and not just as somebody who's a tourist who's going and taking pictures of Dhobi Ghat and Dharavi and the Gateway of India. There's a lot more that you can do, and that's why I think restaurants have played a very important tool. I think people will pay more rent. They will live in smaller homes just to be closer to better restaurants. It's weird, but I think it's not so much about the restaurants, but it's that feeling of belongingness. I think restaurants play a very pivotal role in making people feel welcome or making them feel like they belong. And in many ways, it contributes a great way in the soft power and the cultural power. And of course, it's also one of the highest employment generators. It's very employment dense. So, for example, a 2,000 square foot restaurant would employ 5 times the amount of people that a 2,000 square foot retail store would employ. I think for us, our endeavor has been to try and work for the betterment of restaurateurs and even restaurant workers. That's something that we've worked a lot on in the last 10 years, because unless the ecosystem is thriving and doing well, it's very hard for you to do more. And I think it's almost not cool to kind of do things for restaurateurs. You almost think that they are rich people and they don't need our help, but that nothing could be further than the truth. I think the restaurant business needs a lot of support from the government, and that's something that ADI and I have worked along with NRAI over the years. Have tried to make better conditions for the restaurant industry and community to work in as well.
Yeah.
We actually doing part of the job of the government, which is getting, people who live in a city, in a country, to be happy. We do that as part of our identity, the reason we work. And we've seen around the world, in the few countries where the governments realize the value and work hand in hand, how much better you can do. And I urge any of them who are listening to your podcast to reach out and let's try and do things, create magic together.
Amazing, absolutely. And of course, the consumer will be all the richer for it. If there was a wish list that the two of you could put together for the future of dining in India, it could be anything, whether it's from the government or from food aggregators, tech advancements. What are those key changes that you think would really help the industry thrive?
There's quite a few, but I think for me it's often demoralizing and demotivating that when different arms of the government look at us, mostly it's with a bit of suspicion, bit of worry, bit of negativity. And whenever policies are being made internally, discussions are happening, which make a huge difference to us nationally, we're not treated as a valuable ally, but rather maybe quite the opposite. For me, the future that I'd love to see in India, as I was mentioning earlier, was where we're seen for the value we bring and our help to make it to grow more and more together. And I'm sure in return, we could help the government make much more revenue, have happier customers, get much more appreciation from their voters. So really it could be a win-win on both sides.
I completely echo what AD's been saying. I think coming down to specifics, I think we've been excluded from the benefits of GST in the sense that restaurateurs are not entitled to input tax credit against GST. I think we and petroleum are the only two industries which don't get input tax credit. The GST structure is just not friendly for a corporate entity operating in the restaurant business. We are also very over-regulated. There are 36 different NOCs and licenses one needs to sell one sandwich, which is ridiculous. I don't know why we need police permission to sell a sandwich. We need better, longer hours for the restaurants. I mean, we are shutting down a restaurant at 1:30 has really killed the entire club culture. There's absolutely no club culture here. The city is not thriving. If you want to be an international city, you need to be able to offer a 24/7 experience, right? A city that never sleeps. I mean, there's no reason why something that's legal before 11 p.m. should become illegal after 11 p.m., right? It's just, so this kind of extended curfew approach should be taken away. Restaurateurs and any shop, any business should be allowed to stay as open at late as they want. Of course, we need to work on tourism because right now that's very dismal. And if you see, international tourism is criminally neglected. There's a lot more that can be done. And I think we are engaging in dialogue. And hopefully when they stop seeing this business as indulgence of the rich and start seeing it as what it really is a powerhouse employment generator and infrastructure provider on which you can actually build communities and cultures and cities, that's when I think real change will start to happen.
Absolutely. I guess one of the tough things about creating restaurants and creating concepts continuously is, like you said, Riyaaz, you know, having to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and perhaps sometimes building concepts that aren't necessarily spaces that cater to you, but might cater to future generations as they sort of grow up. So how do you see yourself dealing with Gen Z, both in terms of employing them, but also in terms of creating concepts for them?
I think that, you know, your parents always used to say, you know, you all are so different and you know, we didn't understand and relate. And we always thought cool people like us could easily relate to whatever came along. But we're seeing that new generations are in fact startlingly different in their values, in their approaches. Sometimes not easy. I find to my surprise actually, want to be super successful and be Riyaaz Amlani tomorrow. Maybe put in a year's work and reach there. We've all got where we have through years and years of hard work. And some of the newer generations we meet have a very different approach to that. So having them as part of our teams, employing them, motivating them, getting the best out of them requires a bit of fresh thinking to make that relationship work.
Yeah, of course. And of course, linked to that, Riyaaz, you know, there are a whole new wave of dining concepts taking over. How are you sort of tweaking any of them to cater specifically to Gen Z?
Before that, I just want to say that AD Singh totally slaps and he totally slays this industry. He's so Sigma and he eats and leaves no crumbs. But there's nothing more pathetic than a 40-year-old speaking the lingo of a 20-year-old.
It's highly entertaining.
As restaurateurs, as much as you look for disposable income, you're also looking for people with disposable time. Right? Millennials and Gen Zs now represent almost 65% of the consumption in restaurants. It's not just nice to have, it is absolutely important that you now realize that there's a new generation, a new set of values, a new set of cultures. And, far be it from, every generation thinks that, the way we were brought up was the right way. My kids are 7 and 10, and the kind of staccato conversations that they're used to, because there's so many different conversations going on at the same time, so many things demanding your attention. They're looking at the phones, they're looking at TV, they're reading a book, they're talking to their friends. Even when they're playing video games, they are kind of having this multi-layered conversations. And it needs a completely different tool set than what we grew up with, right? This survival kit is very different now than what was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So never going to stand in judgment of that. You just have to admit that this is the new way of doing things. In many ways, I am seeing so much ambition. And, while a lot of people accuse them of being lazy, I just feel that they're thinking differently. They're thinking smarter. Maybe they don't glamorize hard work that much, but I don't think that at any point of time they're not ambitious, right? Or the fire in them is not strong. And I think that they will not do hard work for the sake of hard work. They will do hard work if it means something or it has an impact in their heads. And then I don't think they're afraid of hard work. So a lot to learn from them. Work with them, make them a part of your team. Get out of the way, I suppose. Just shut up and sidestep and let them do their thing. I think increasingly I feel that we are in a position where we should be helping small startups get national scale instead of trying to figure out new ideas ourselves, because like I said, it's sad and it's pathetic when a 40-year-old is trying to come up with lingo for 20-year-olds. It doesn't work.
Fair. What would you say is the next big thing in the Indian restaurant scene?
I think social is going to 600.
No, Eddie, no. By the time we get there, it'll be my grandfather's brand and nobody wants to go there. I think more of more. I think people just want a whole lot more of a whole lot more. I think people will want regional, they'll want international, they'll want to go small and homely, and they'll want more of more. And I think that this whole cookie cutter approach to restauranting, having the same experience everywhere, that's going out of the door.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for soul. They're looking for real. Yeah. It's a whole new world.
Tech is taking over our world, positively, negatively. One of the great things is that the business we're in, I think you can't replicate a lovely evening out at a great restaurant or bar that you like. And I think we're going to continue seeing more of those and better experiences for customers across all our cities.
Fantastic. Amazing. Thank you so much. I just want to end with a quick game. It's not a drinking game.
I gotta go.
So plated, tasted, or ban it. Edi, wasabi ice cream.
Tasted.
Okay. Glow in the dark sushi rolls.
Yuck.
Gold plated dosas.
Ban it.
Kimchi cheesecake.
No, plated.
Plated? Okay, nice. Gulab jamun waffles.
Plated.
Mango dolly chaat.
For me, I'd say ban it.
Okay. And chow mein omelette.
Taste it.
Taste it. Okay, amazing.
Plate that time.
Awesome. So not too bad. So there was wasabi ice cream, kimchi cheesecake, gulab jamun waffles, and chow mein omelette that kind of made the shortlist. Riyaaz, is there anything that you would like to pitch for? Like, if you had to convince a customer to try this and say that this is, the most exciting thing to happen to the food world.
I would say wasabi ice cream, Japanese ho ya badtameez, aaj maza, kal saza.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
Kimchi cheesecake. Do you want to try that?
Why, there's a Bath cheesecake, so there's no reason why there can't be a Korean cheesecake, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
KCC.
Amazing. And gulab jamun waffles.
I think Bombay Sweet Shop should be doing this.
Absolutely.
to pair with their rasmalai softie.
100%. It would actually be a very good, very
Yeah.
tasty thing. I'd eat that for sure. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a real honor, and I've really, really enjoyed talking to the two of you. And I hope you have enjoyed talking to me as well.
Always a blast with them.
And Riyaaz, lovely to see you. Riyaaz, yeah, great to see you, bud.
Catch you.
Yeah, I want to do that soon. Right.
And I'll see you guys soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to show us some love. Hit like, drop a comment, and scribble it in chutney. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever food memories live. And tell us, which dish from your childhood lives rent-free in your head?